principles. Look at me. You will never truly excel in life. In fact, you cannot truly walk in faith if you do not know God. I hope you know that God is beyond a principle. There is a dimension of exploits in life that is not principle dependent. It is presence dependent. Principles are powerful, but principles are inferior to spirits, inferior to presence. A spirit can stop a principle from working. Are we together? So the principle should work. For instance, there is a principle of reproduction. Are we together? And it should work biologically. But when a spirit is introduced into that equation, it can tamper with that principle. Diligence is a principle. Are we together? When you are tired, the principle is that you rest and your body experiences revitalization. But a spirit can be introduced to your space that can stop principles from working. If you exalt principles beyond presence, you are in trouble. Principles are powerful, but the presence of God vetoes any principle. It is true. I'm a man of principles, but I've known the value of his presence. Most people ignore God and they start learning laws and principles. Principle of this. In getting spiritual knowledge, the first port of call is to know God, then know his ways. Know God, the person, the presence, then the principles. This is a correction for someone now, because you are full of a lot of principles but no experience with God. Is the reason why it's not working. Principles are powerful, and there is a dimension of principles that, in fact, principles generally don't need relationship. They just need obedience. That is the reason why you can hate God and engage some principles and they work, but they only work if no spirit tampers with it. Most times we make it look as if principles work indefinitely. It doesn't matter who. Is not true. Spirits are enhancers and enforcers of principles. Master, we have toiled all night. It's not a laziness problem. It's not a diligence problem. Something must have happened there. He said, at this point, you don't need a principle again. Let me show you what my presence can do. Cast the net to the right side. Bring me his presence and bring me the laws of life. I will run away from the laws and embrace his presence. Let me see what door will not open when I'm walking with Jesus. Let me see who will not attend to me when I find his presence. Moses did not say if your principle does not go with us. He said if your presence. If your presence does not go with us. You want to be great? Respect principles, but honor God. Honor God. Press to know God. Press to spend time in his presence. You see, principles does not stop challenges from coming. When challenges come, your confidence is not just drawn from principles, it's drawn from the one you know. But I know whom I have believed, not just what I believe, and I am persuaded. Are we together now? I've met many challenges in my life as a person, and my confidence was not in the principles that I know. My confidence was in that presence. For instance, if somebody tells you, I had a dream and I saw you dying in that dream, there's no principle that will bring you out of. Because at that point, it's not a principle. You need the presence of God. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and they are saved. Am I ignoring principles? Not at all. They have their place. But I'm telling you that this principle mentality alone will cause people to do the right things and still fail. And it will frustrate you because you are doing everything that should work. And yes, it is not working. Who is learning this morning? So once your motive is aligned, the next thing is you must take time to know God. And I submit to you that knowing God takes time. Oh, knowing God takes time. You have to learn his character. To learn his character. So that when you stand before closed doors, rather than chickening out in fear, you know that the God that I serve is a mighty God. There is something about God that when you know. Are we together? I give you an instance. When your pastor told you that we were coming for this conference, how many of you doubted whether I will come? How many of you said, I'm not sure Apostle will come, I'm not sure, Reverend is just lying to us? Because there's something you know about him. You know that he has the capacity to make it happen, he has the relationship to make it happen, and he has the integrity to make it happen. Your confidence of leaving your home to come for this conference was based on that. So many times disobedience to God is hinged from your not knowing him or you're not trusting him. You are really not sure God is that dependable. Are we together? If I tell you I have $100 in my pocket, can you see it? How are you sure I'm not lying? Are we together? How are you sure? Maybe I'm lying and I'll just apologize and say I'm lying. Are we together? I don't know how I would have been able to do ministry today if I did not take time to know God. I've not known everything about him. We are still learning. But today God can give us instructions to do some of the things we are doing. Let me tell you the truth. And this is a leaders conference, I will tell you. Talking about the finance that is spent over some of the conferences that we hold is even the least concern. The finance is a serious thing, but it's the least concern. You can have money, but it takes grace to converge nations together. Are we together? This is not a money thing. It is a true test of grace. Hallelujah. But where does that confidence come from? The confidence comes from knowing God. When I sent you, lackest thou anything? Where do you find the workers? Where do you find the people? Where do you find the place with all of the sentiments? Is someone learning? If you do not know God, you will run out of life. You will chicken out. But when you know God, there are things you will dare. Faith is a natural byproduct of taking time to invest in the knowledge of God. You know his person first, then his principles will profit you. But when you don't take time to know God and you know principles, they will work, but they are at the risk of any interruptions that come from spirits. And spirits will come because they know that you are about God's business. They will come and tamper with many things so that when 1 + 1 should be 2, your own equation will be 1 + 1 = 0. You will now do 10 + 10. The answer will still be 0. 100 + 100 will still be 0. And you say, but this is wrong. Unfortunately, in the realm of the spirit, it does not work mathematically. It works as allowed by spirits. The same way God can step in and 1 + 1 should be 2, but God decides to add 0. Who will clean it? So 1 + 1, and your 1 + 1 = 20. And you say, no, this is not correct. But that's because of the presence of God. When the principles want to say no, God says my presence is an addition, it's a factor. I hope you're understanding what I'm teaching you. There is a reason why you see that although we engage these principles, you clearly see that the results are beyond principles. Beyond principles. If I tell you that every result today that God is wrought through our lives is purely based on principles, it would be stupid and foolish to say that. Are we together? Presence. There are things you and God can discuss in the secret place, and God can say, I want to honor you in a way. And you too, you will see it, and you cannot remember engaging any principle that should produce that kind of result. It's the reason why there is no pride. You humble yourself again and say, God, you have surprised me. Oh, you have surprised me again. Who is learning? Hallelujah. Principles. I remember when God gave me an instruction last year when we were holding our first conference, and God gave me that instruction. How do you go and hold a conference on a weekday in Europe? A weekday, not a holiday, a weekday. And then you are gathering people, you are using the largest indoor sports theater in the whole of UK. Can you imagine that? A weekday. Who do you think you are? Just because you are anointed in your community, you don't want to go and embarrass yourself in front of the whole world. But God said so. And because you know him, you can get up like a fool until you win.